My name is Leah Houston, and I'm the Artistic Director of MABELLEarts in Central Etobicoke. I actually founded MABELLEarts out of a 4-year residency that had happened in this neighborhood by our mother company, Jumbly's Theatre. And what Jumbly's does is move to different urban neighborhoods around the city and create long-term residencies that culminate in community plays. And so I was a part of that process from the beginning. And once the play had been finished, people in the neighborhood wanted us to stay and wanted to see some kind of community arts continue. So I stayed behind and formed MABELLEarts. First of all, by having the springboard of Jumbly's Theatre, that was a huge blessing. And I came into this with a lot of support and things already in place and people already excited. And so we began in 2007, myself and another artist named Noah Keneally, to just be in the park and make things with kids in the summertime. And that became a way to start to imagine what could happen in the park. But it was a very slow process that began first with engaging the kids, making lanterns, having ceremonies, that grew into then engaging their parents and other people in the neighborhood. And for us, I think it really comes out of being in the park on an almost daily basis, especially in the summer, and doing projects that are interesting, that draw people in, and then together deciding what can happen next. So the kind of projects that we do in the park are very artist-driven. So they come out of our impulses, as visual artists, as culinary artists, as theater artists. But that impulse is directly instigated by being in this neighborhood. So the more that artists spend time in this neighborhood, the more our artistic impulse is defined by the people that we know and have relationships with here. So each summer is very different in that it is a different expression of what's exciting us as artists and as a neighborhood working together. So in the past, last summer we had a number of late night campfires. We had a few sleepovers. It was Ramadan in August, and a huge population of the folks who live here are Muslim. So we had late night iftar celebrations. So at the end of each day when the sun goes down, people sit together with their families and have a big feast. But then it's time to go out into the market and see your neighbors and eat some yummy street food and just hang out. And we wanted to kind of try to replicate that in our own kind of MABELLEarts way. So we were having these big campfires. We started cooking over open fire and learning a lot from the women in the neighborhood who have tons of experience with open fire cooking, how to do that, and have these big neighborhood parties with art activities, campfires, and then sometimes sleepovers long into the night. From the beginning, when we first came to this neighborhood, we noticed that park and were so drawn to it. It was neglected and overrun, but it was also the main thoroughfare for people in the neighborhood. It was the way to school and the way to the subway. So hundreds of people were walking through that park every day. It had mature trees and beautiful boulders, and we just felt a sense of longing to do something there. We don't interact much with parks, forestry, and recreation because our park is actually owned by Toronto Community Housing. And that's been one of the biggest benefits to us so far because parks and forestry and recreation has so many rules and guidelines and policies around activity in public parks, and especially because they're increasingly moving towards a fee system, it's been essential for Maybelle Park that it be TCH owned, that we've had the freedom to experiment and do things without worrying too much about filling out forms or paying for the right to do things in public space. The other thing is we have a very supportive city councillor. Peter Milchin has been very, very supportive of the park and of what we're doing, and he's played a really big role in making sure that what we do can continue. So we're a very hungry, not-for-profit arts organization, and we really take the cues from other arts organizations in the city, and so fundraising is a huge part of what we do. The projects that we do are large-scale, expensive, unwieldy, and we need the money behind us. So we look to all levels of government. We have some really good relationships with family foundations, and fundraising is in fact a huge part of what happens here at MABELLEarts. We are an organization that's made up of a small core staff of 3, and then a very large volunteer base. We have a group of people we call community leaders, who are people like Pat Austin, who play a huge role in the daily operations of the organization. And then outside of that, we reckon that we're working with about 600 residents. But then we also see, because our work is also about transforming physical space, we also feel that we're impacting everyone in the neighborhood, which is over 3,000 people. I think that the arts are a really exciting way to activate public spaces and public parks. When it's done with an eye towards the everyday, when we decide that art is an essential part of our everyday lives, then that has a lot of power to transform all kinds of things.